Welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve, where communication matters. Join us as we discuss effective ways to communicate, bridge the gaps, and build long-lasting relationships within your business and life. Here are your hosts, Asha Prasad and Steve Harper.
Welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve. I am Steve Harper. With me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Dr. Asha Prasad. Asha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Steve. How are you?
I am doing good. I am excited about today's conversation because it's a
I am too.
tie-in to our last episode where we were talking about how do you become an entrepreneur. And it's around this topic of the word hustle. Have you heard this word?
Mhm. I have a
Do you
lot.
do you a lot? Yeah. Thank you. I thought it was just me. And you if you're on Instagram, TikTok, you're watching any of the YouTubes, there's this hustle culture that seems to permeate the entrepreneurial landscape.
Yes.
What do you think about that? What do you see out there in your on when you're on these various platforms?
Well, it's interesting because there's like this bombardment of like, you have to be doing this, you have to be doing that, you have to be on all the time.
Yep.
You don't sleep very much, you just don't do anything, but you live, breathe everything about your business. And, it kind of makes you feel guilty. If you really start listening to it, you're like,
Thank
oh my
you.
God, I slept
Yeah.
5 hours. Oh my God, I'm missing out. And, it's very interesting, Steve, because when we had heard that we were gonna, when we got the feedback from some of our listeners about talking about addressing this, I was thinking to myself, one of the best things that happened was for me to move to a different culture where that is not such a thing,
Yeah.
really. They
Yep.
prioritize like life, you know what I mean? Like living other than just doing the hustle.
You still have room over there? I might move over there. I mean,
Sure.
it's funny you said that though, because when you are watching these individuals, and I'm not throwing anybody up under the bus, but you've got
Right.
these Gary Vaynerchuk mindsets that are out there. They're like, if you're not working
Yeah.
20 hours a day, you're not really committed to your business, and but it's push, 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 push. And I think it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting because based on our last episode when we talked about entrepreneurship, a lot of what we were talking about is you have to be committed, you have to be excited about what
Yeah.
you're doing, but you can't let it permeate and dominate your life. And one of the things that I think we've got a
Exactly.
couple of tips that we wanted to share, but the first one I wanted to pop on here
Mhm.
is stop as an entrepreneur comparing yourself to what everybody else does. Now, to a
Yeah.
degree, I think you look at these people that have tons of followers and they have this momentum out there. It's fantastic. But you know what? You think it's them doing it, which puts you back in that, oh, I feel like I'm behind, or I feel like
Exactly.
I'm a slacker in comparison. What you don't see is behind the scenes how many people they got working for them that are doing that to put themselves
Exactly.
up, to make themselves look like they are just killing it, but all on their own. And we know it's not possible, right? To be able to be a
It's true.
successful entrepreneur, it takes a village, right? It takes a team. And
It does.
I think it becomes very easy to get sucked into that hustle mindset that I'm not doing enough as an individual. And then, sort of get chirped at by these talking heads to tell me that I'm not doing enough as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and get sucked into that mindset. But it really is kind of, there's a falsity there, right?
There is. There is. You know what? I always call this comparisonitis. Don't catch it. Because when you're
Comparisonitis.
comparisonitis, it's like you don't want to compare yourself to what other people are doing, because you're right, Steve, you hit the nail on the head, because it's like you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. You don't know that maybe they have like 30 people behind them,
Yeah.
doing all this stuff, and so that's one of those things that you just need to do your own thing and what feels right for you.
Yeah.
Really, that's very important.
Comparisonitis. Is that like diverticulitis or whatever that is?
Could be, I guess. It's not a good thing.
It, both are things you don't want. Let's just say that, right? So
Exactly,
that's a good tip.
exactly.
But you have another one that ties into that. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah, so my next tip is that incorporating mindfulness. And, mindfulness, the what I mean by this, and it doesn't mean that you have to go sit on a yoga mat and meditate. It doesn't, I mean, you can if you want to. Meditation is great, but I'm
Ooh.
talking about just simplicity, just simplicity. You know,
Okay.
get used to taking some deep breaths, throughout the day and just kind of centering yourself, short meditations or short, like listening to relaxing music, something that you take a midday break, go for a walk. These little things that you can do to become more mindful, because those moments are going to help you kind of hit the pause button, regroup with yourself, and be able to, kind of motivate you and stimulate you to go on with your day. But taking those moments, I think it stops the hustle in its tracks right then and there.
Yep.
If you can schedule them in, great. But eventually it'll just become a habit. It'll really become a habit. But I think it's really important.
Yeah, and I kind of think as you tie into the mindfulness aspect, it would allow you to
Hmm.
replace the word hustle with intentional, right? Everything that you
Yes.
do comes
Yes.
from a position of a little bit more even keel, a little bit more focused.
Hmm.
I think at the end of the day, trying to ask yourself, what's my next best right decision that I can make? And if you're
Yeah.
so, hard charging and focused and you're trying to keep up with what you think everybody else is out there doing, you're never going to be successful, right? Because you just can't do
True.
it. You have to find your own pace. You have to find your own cadence, and you will find your own beat of success. And that mindfulness aspect is so critical because as we talk about a
Yeah.
lot on this show with entrepreneurs, it's the greatest job in the world. It's also one of the most frustrating and stressful jobs in the world, right? And when you
It
can
is.
find a way to incorporate mindfulness into everything you do, taking time for yourself, taking time
Hmm.
away from the office, going on a walk, relaxing in any way that you can, like you said, meditation,
Hmm.
or just sort of stepping away from the chaos of the business, it allows you to come back with a lot more intention and a lot more focus.
It does.
Yep,
Yeah, that is
absolutely.
true.
Well, and that also brings you up, I know you have one other point that you wanted to make that ties
Hmm.
in really well, which is, setting boundaries, right?
Setting
So what do you
boundaries.
mean by that?
Yeah. You know what? Setting boundaries, this is really key, Stephen. And this is one of the hardest things I will say, even for myself personally, is setting that time of like, okay, no email after a certain time of day. When you're with your family, when you're with your friends, whenever you're doing, shutting off that email, shutting off all notifications, really setting those boundaries. I mean, it's so much more than just saying no to things, because that is part of setting boundaries.
Yeah.
But it's also about, okay, this is my downtime, and also respecting that of the people that work for you as well and that work
Oh,
with you.
yeah.
Be respectful of that. Don't expect that if you're going to be sitting there 24/7 that they're going to be sitting there 24/7. That's not the way it works. So you've got to set those boundaries, and I think definitely as a manager or a leader, you set that example. It's good to know what those boundaries are for yourself, so that way you can set an example for people that work for you or that you're working with.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
you need to be vocal about it as well. Like you said, set
Yes.
expectations for yourself, but then be vocal about what you are. If you're the business leader, hey, what's my email policy? What's my Slack policy? What are my expectations in
Right.
responding in off work hours, right? And the
Yeah.
intent would be, unless it's an emergency, I don't expect you to respond to anything I send you. I'm just putting it out there because as entrepreneurs, the
Yeah.
challenge can be great ideas, great thoughts, reminding yourself of something you needed to do at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon that comes up at 2 o'clock
Exactly.
this morning. Sometimes those things happen, right? But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you haven't set that, it becomes part of the culture. And then your employees feel like
It
they're
does.
beholden to that. They never get the time off, they never get
True.
any away time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's also important for you to do that so that you're setting that expectation and you're not being beholden to your customers, to your vendors,
Yeah.
etc. I had somebody just this past week that sent me a text, or actually, excuse me, sent me an email. And
Hmm.
literally within 5 minutes, I got a text from them. Hey, did you get my email? What? At the end of the day, and then I didn't respond to the text because I was in a meeting. Because I would have
Yeah.
responded to the email when I got to it. However, I didn't, and I didn't respond to the text. And then they called me,
Oh
and I
gosh.
literally
Yeah.
had to say, "Do you understand the amount of work that I put in per day, trying to manage my schedule and my time?"
Hmm.
And this is not even a critical issue. You
Exactly.
got to take a step back. And let me just tell you, I check email twice a day. Check it a little
Hmm.
more than that, but I told them I check it twice a day.
Right.
And I try and batch the things that I can get done, in responses
Yeah.
that need to happen. And then ultimately, if something can be delayed, I'm going to delay it. And then if people get upset about it, whether it's my team or whether it's a client or whether it's this particular person that just happens to be a colleague, it's a good opportunity for you to actually establish and say, here's how we're doing it. Here's how I work. Here's what I do.
Yeah.
If that doesn't fit with your parameters or your time schedule, I'm sorry, but it does for mine. And that's what I need in order to be efficient and successful.
Yeah. That's really important, being clear about that and communicating about that. I think that that's important.
Absolutely. And my last tip, I think, and I think it's a big one,
Mhm.
is ask for help, right? So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, when you are in a hustle culture, you feel like you got to do it all on your own and you got to make work and do all these things,
Mhm.
got to go, 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 go. And the reality is, like we said at the very beginning of the episode, those people that are out there that are out, making themselves look great on YouTube or
Mhm.
Instagram or whatever, they have a whole litany of people that are out there helping them
They
and
do.
do it. And it's great that they want to propose it like they're doing it all and they're just killing it. And maybe some are. Hey, fantastic. More power to them.
Right.
I don't have that energy or that effort a lot of times. And so I think one of the things that I built into this piece is if you want to get from where you are to where you want to go, the best way to do that is by engaging
Mhm.
people to help you. And you've got to be vocal about where you want to go, how you need the assistance to get there, and be willing
Exactly.
to take and be open to the advice that's given and the suggestions that are made and the people that are willing to step up to help you get there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, asking for help, everybody needs to do that because we can't do everything on our own. And you know what? I love sharing also with fellow entrepreneurs like,
Yeah.
okay, what are you doing? How are you doing that? How is that working for you? And just kind of not to compare, but to really talk about things so that way it sparks your own creativity and your own, comfortable feeling of, hey, okay, you know what? It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for advice, and it's okay to ask suggestions about maybe you need to hire somebody for your team, maybe you need somebody on your team to help you in a different way. And I think that that's really important. It's not a weakness. A lot of times people think it's a weakness to ask for help, but it's really not. It's one of your biggest strengths, actually.
It is, and I think with this whole hustle culture that seems to permeate a lot of entrepreneurs' mindset, when the quicker that you can realize you can't do it all on your own and that you're going to need other people in order to be
Yeah,
successful or at least be efficient at being successful, the better off you're going to be,
exactly.
right? And I remember one of the
Yep,
best
agreed.
decisions I made for my software company was reaching out to somebody who actually didn't have or come from my industry at all. But I said, look, here are the things that I need help with. And I think you'd be exceptionally
Hmm.
good at doing them. And at the
Right.
time, this individual did not at any juncture think that he would have the skill sets or the capacities, but
Hmm.
I saw something in him that I knew that I needed and there was value. And I came to him
Hmm.
and here he's looking at me like you got everything figured out and you're just like, making
Right.
stuff happen. And it's like, if you only knew, right? Now he knows. And now he's like, yeah, you were a train wreck back then and you're still a train wreck today. But at the end of the day, what I recognized was I needed to call the timeout. I needed to ask for the
Yeah.
right kinds of assistance. And you identify those people that you know that can add value and contribute. And you come to them and say, look, here's what I need your help with. Please, and you're specific, right? You give them the
Yeah.
what you see in them or what you know they bring to the table. And it was a game changer for my business. And that was, that
Hmm.
was key. And you and I have done that for each other for
Yeah.
years, right? We get stuck, we get
Exactly.
into a position. Heck, we were just talking about, well, what do we want to do differently with this show, right? Well, you can't
Exactly.
just have one of us doing it. We got to both do it. And we got to figure out how do
Yeah.
we contribute and how do we, organize who's going to do what and when. And then you divide it up. But that help piece is so critical.
It is. It really is. And I mean, I do think anybody out there that's kind of looking at this hustle game of like, is this for me? Is it, ask yourself, is this for me? Is it not for me?
Yep.
And if it's not for you, figure out what is. Ask yourself the important questions because that's really going to help you.
Yep, I agree. Well, we love these conversations. We have talked about this for a while. Our episodes are all geared around conversation that matters. And one of the ways that we make that happen is by continuing the conversation beyond these topics, right? So, or to
Right.
expand upon these topics. So, Asha, how can people get involved, get engaged, contribute what they took from this episode, what they would, what their responses are to the hustle culture and what they're seeing out there.
Yeah.
How can we get a conversation started with them out there outside of this episode?
So definitely we invite you to visit our website, conversationwithashaandsteve.com. You can reach out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those platforms. Drop a comment below, wherever you're catching this video, or if you're on the podcast, you can definitely go to social media and be able to contact us. We really love to hear from you all, and we
Yep.
love getting the feedback and being able to interact with you. So um, any of those ways is welcome, because we
Yep,
always check
absolutely.
everything, right?
And we have some of the greatest audience on the planet. Let's just be
We
honest. I mean,
do.
we have people that are plugging
We do.
in, through the video or on the various podcast platforms. We are just so grateful that you guys tune in with
Yeah.
us. And we'll be back again very soon with another interesting conversation between Asha and myself. But until then, Asha, take care.
Thanks. Till next time.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. We love to hear feedback and questions from our listeners. Please feel free to visit our Facebook page for more tips and information. You can also email us directly at info@ripplecentral.com for more information.